Hey, what's up, guys? I have a heck of a video for you today. It is my conversation with Alex Salser. He's a guitar player around DC. He's a bandmate of John Day's, the bass player who was on the channel previously. He plays guitar for a band called Oh He Dead around DC, as well as a number of other bands and acts. Man, we had a heck of a time. We had such a blast hanging out, talking guitars, talking gear, and found we had a lot of similarities in kind of our approach and just our love for gigging, our love for live performing, and how we kind of approach that. He has a Kemper as well that he uses strictly for studio purposes, so we talked about that a bit. I got to play his custom shop strat, and we talked about Stratocasters a bit, and man, it was awesome. Alex is a great dude. He has a lot of really interesting gear knowledge and wisdom to share, and we just had an absolute blast. So I had met Alex once or twice before this conversation after Oh He Dead shows, and just kind of had general conversation with him, but I had never really sat down or had a real conversation with him in at length before. And man, just such a cool dude. Had a really great time with this one, and out at his studio out in Leesburg, which has a really cool story as well. So yeah, hope you enjoy this, and if you do, please copy the link and just share it with one friend who would enjoy watching it as well. But yeah, here you go. Here's my conversation with Alex. Thanks for having me over here. The barn is awesome. So I know we were talking about this when I got here. Talk about this building a little bit.
So the building we're in, we call it the barn because it's a barn. It was in my parents' backyard and was set up in like I want to say late 1800s, early 1900s. There's no like plot of land. We can't find a deed or anything. So we know it predates this house. And it was kind of falling apart, and my brother's a builder, so we took it apart. We built a brand new building with soundproof floors, ceilings, and then we basically had to just put the old wood back on. We actually ran out of wood, so we had to find another fallen down barn.
Get in, like, some reclaimed stuff,
and then grab some more wood, which is some of the inside. But yeah, that's the story. Now this is a rehearsal space, studio, video place.
Yeah, it's a great sounding room just from kind of like being in here. It's the right amount of like reverb.
Yeah, and we didn't really know what the final product was going to be until we actually tried it. But everyone who's come here has been pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's nice that you didn't have to do like much treatment to get it.
No, not
to temper
really,
it down a little bit. That's cool, because old wood is super friggin' hard. So it's a lot of like super old wood, super hard wood. So. Yeah. That's great. So just share kind of like your name and really kind of how did you start playing live music and sort of when was that? You don't need to walk through like your entire life story, but like when did you start playing live and how did that happen? And then how'd you get to like today?
So I'm Alex Salser. Look at the camera.
Nice.
I was debating on what to go to college for, and I applied for two things: viticulture, so growing grapes.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Or music. And music was last like minute thing. And I was like, maybe I'll do this for a year. I'll see how it goes. I got to campus and there was a girl sitting on campus singing folk tunes. And I just went up to her. It was super awkward. I didn't know anyone. I was like, hey, you want to start a band? And that band became a band called Deer Creek, who we played for. We still play sometimes, but that was our first live show, was a vineyard that was 3 hours, and we had 45 minutes of music. So we played the same set over and over again.
Because they want you there for like you're like, dude, let's book a gig, and then they're like, great, can you come play? Let's see, 5 to 8:30 or whatever, 6 to 9, and you're like, we don't know that many songs.
Yeah, so that actually the vineyard scene was like very helpful in a weird way about just like learning lots of music, memorizing lots of music under a very low pressure situation. So when we finally got to venues, we felt like we had 30 minutes of decent.
Yeah.
So that was when I was 18. And
definitely helps you distill down to your best stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So why did you want to get into like growing grapes? Did your family like wine or something? You were like around it? Or
honestly, just was kind of like lost. I didn't know what to do. And I was looking at stuff. I thought architecture was cool. I thought music was cool. I thought, I was just kind of had started guitar about 16, 17. So I hadn't been playing very long. But yeah, grapes, we lived on that. We had a farm in Percival. So we had like 500 acres and we'd rent it out to farmers every year for, they'd do soybeans, corn, and rotate it. And I was like, we already have this piece of land. Like maybe I could do something with it.
Yeah.
And that was just the idea. It was like, I probably would have hated it.
Once you actually get out there and you're like working it in the heat of summer, like you'd be like, this is not what I wanted.
But so then I just, that's why. For no reason at all.
That's funny. And you were telling me earlier, or you were telling me a few minutes ago, when you were like 17, so when you say you were messing around with guitar a little bit, you walked into a gorgeous guitar center and like saw a beautiful guitar.
Yes. Before that, I had played my dad's guitars. So he had a Yamaha classical guitar. I want to say he had the Taylor T5, which was pretty cool for its time. And then, I wanted a guitar, so I went into Guitar Center, and there was a purple PRS on the wall. I had no clue what PRS was. I later learned that Santana played it, which I thought was like totally hip at that age. And I was just like, this is the shit.
I love
it. And I couldn't really play.
Is it like a burst or is it like straight up? Like
it's just like purple with like the PRS lines on it, and like the sideways grain. It's funny because I since then I'm like, oh, am I a PRS guy? Is that my look? Is that my thing? But I always end up back at it. I can't escape that guitar. It's on every recording I've ever made. When we went down to do a recording recently, I brought 6 guitars and we only used that one and like a $200 Strat, and it's just like it's the guitar.
No, I get that. I get that. I was just I was just talking with Jeremy Hairston, and he brought over his. I was like, because I have a PRS too. I kind of know what you're talking about, and just about how it does so many things and does them well and is so easy to play. It's just like you just want to play that guitar. It cuts through the mix well. It sits in the mix really well. They're very present guitars. But I had him bring over his 594 semi-hollow.
That thing is beautiful. I have seen that in person.
It's crazy. And he always sounds great. But, so I had him come over and was just like, let's put that thing through some different sounds. I wanted to hear it through my rig too. And I fell in love with it. So I'm currently kind of looking for I've been like texting him about 594s. I'm like, hey, there's this one. And, is it a good deal and all that stuff. But yeah, they're definitely like, they're so comfortable to play. Like, I think what he was saying was like, he was like, it's just because there is something to be said for like a guitar that kind of fights you a little bit. Like I have one Strat that's set up for that. My traditional like 3 single coil Strat, I have the action a little higher. I've gone back and forth between 10s and 11s on it, but it generally, it's a floating bridge, so you really got to pay attention to your bends and stuff. And it's one of those things where it fights me a little bit. I have to kind of like, in a good way, it makes me kind of pare down what I'm trying to do and pick what I'm going to do and try to, and just execute it very intentionally, which is great. But then you pull out like my PRS and you can just sort of glide. It's like an open, just sort of like an open canvas. You can just kind of, whatever comes into your head, it's just easy.
I agree. And some nights I bring out guitars that fight me just because I want the struggle. But at the end of the day, it's like, the PRS, they stay in tune, they work.
That's a lot of it.
And I haven't been playing it live for the last few years, but it just works every day. Like, I don't know. It
just gets it done.
Yeah. Props to them.
Yeah, I hear that. All right, so you're playing in that band. So you're in college. Y'all are figuring out how to play for 3 hours. Start playing some other clubs. So you were writing all original stuff, or did you start to do a lot of covers to fill that space?
Yeah, a lot of covers, a lot of originals, but it was just 2 acoustic guitars. That was it. And we did everything from like you know, Fleetwood Mac to Norah Jones to the coffee house scene, you know, classic rock tunes. But at that time, we really started digging deep into writing. And we had such a massive amount of musicians that it was actually really helpful to be around all these people. So we basically just, we just wrote a lot. So by the end of college, we could play hours and hours of just original songs. I don't know if those were all good, but
right.
but we could do it.
We liked them.
Yeah,
you know.
they were fun.
Not, yeah. It's hard for so if you look at like newborn babies, sometimes I just think a lot of babies look really weird. But I'm sure to like their mother, it's like the most beautiful thing ever.
Exactly.
Like your own baby doesn't look ugly to you necessarily.
And we still have a lot of tunes to record. Like I still meet with Kate. We don't play as often, but like, yeah, it's still going. It's weird because it's my first project, and it seems like one of those things that we kind of went our separate ways, but it will always be a thing. Mm-hmm. Like there will always be someone asking Deer Creek to play a little show every once in a while. Yeah. It's kind of nice to like, you know, get everyone together.
Yeah, that's fun. I had a similar thing with a band that I auditioned to play drums for. So your dad played guitar, you started playing guitar. My dad was a drummer. Nice. Started playing drums when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And so when I got my driver's license, I started gigging out with like punk and hardcore bands that were my brother's age when I was in like 7th, 8th grade. Started playing for like, you know, grunge and like hardcore punk bands. And, you know, while those guys were in like late high school and college. And so I had kind of started, you know, playing out a little bit. And then when I got my driver's license finally, I got the opportunity to audition for it was a cover band from Stanton, Virginia that did a lot of.
Mockingbird.
Yeah.
Play there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a really cool place downtown.
Yeah.
So I auditioned to play drums for a band from Stanton, and it's kind of the same thing with those guys. That started in like 2000. I think I got in that band like 2007, and it had already been going for a few years. Same thing with those guys though. Like every few years, it's like, hey, you guys want to get together and do a few years ago we did like we played like they were doing like a 80s. Glow in the dark night run 5K, and we got to, and it was like a ton of people, and it was at like the big park in Stanton, and got to do like it was a huge outdoor thing, and just got to they just want us to play a bunch of like 80s. So we just played a ton of like Bowie and Prince and like all kinds of random stuff, NXS and like just weird stuff. And that happens every few years. Same kind of thing. It's like, hey, you guys want to get together? Is it the kind of thing like it is with us where you've become such good friends over those years that you're like, it's almost like an opportunity just to hang out. It's like
that's how I feel. So like after college, I moved to Kate's parents had a house like near, it was like south of Boston, and we lived there and just wrote music and played and kind of slummed it for a year. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of became like family. Like I know their family really well. They know mine really well. So it's like, you know, we'll always be doing something, but it is just a chance to just chill.
Yep. Yeah. Get together, hang out again.
Yeah.
That's cool. So right now you've got a ton of other projects going too, right? You've got at least you got Oh He Dead going. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that.
So Oh He Dead, like that kind of came out of nowhere. I was actually playing with this band Deer Creek at the Black Cat, and it was for like I don't know what it was for, but it was one of those things where there's a bunch of bands on the bill.
Yep. That's how that room does it.
Yeah. And Oh He Dead played after. And they came up to me after I had played, and they were like, I remember feeling like super awkward. They were like, "Holy shit, dude, you're nasty. Like, we might need another guitar player one time." And I was like, "What?" But I'd heard CJ's voice, and I was like, "Oh, it's one of a kind.
Cool. She has a really one of a kind."
So voice. I didn't really know what to expect. I saved Andy's phone number, and like then I didn't hear from them for months. And I didn't, I was like, it was nice to meet them. I didn't think about it until like 3 or 4 months later. I guess their other guitar player, Alex Vance, who's kind of a staple of the DC scene for a while, moved to New York City.
Okay.
And so I started filling in, and then just like I went in deep. Like I started writing tunes, like a lot of tunes for them. I started just like, that just became my life. And it has been now for about 4 years.
So when we were like setting all this crap up, you were talking about how going from playing like folk and like, like being around like bluegrass musicians and playing folk to like playing Oh He Dead and like playing soul music all of a sudden. Like how did your approach change then to writing guitar parts and all that?
Yeah, it changed a lot. I mean, it's funny because Deer Creek had one blues song, and that's the song we played that night. So I think they might have thought was like my thing.
Yeah.
Like it was like a
That's
blues
funny.
soul tune.
That's funny.
But like, and I studied jazz in college and stuff. Like I wasn't like a noob at like the scene, but it definitely wasn't my passion or anything. So guitar parts really changed because it was like two guitars that needed to interact with each other. And that became like a little bit different, you know, like swinging and actually having like, you know, good time and feel is a lot different than playing straight. And it's funny now when I go back and if I record myself playing like, you know, a straight A thing or playing like a straight ahead rock and roll thing, it's like I've almost like I've changed into more of a funky player. But our inspirations were like a lot the same. Like CJ's favorite band is Kings of Leon.
Dude, absolutely.
And she likes Neil Young, and so she liked all these. So we like have common ground, but the main sort of element of Oh He Dead became like it needs to groove, and it could be a rock tune, it could be whatever, but it needs to have kind of a bounce to it.
I hear you.
And we're going away from that like now. Or,
okay.
You know, but you know. Yeah, my playing changed a lot. I mean, I got a lot better just like learning how to like. I wasn't the lead anymore, you know. And a lot of my stuff, I was used to being like really out in front, and then you sort of have to sit back and be like, okay, I am in service to this voice,
and to the song.
Yeah, and to the song.
Yeah,
and when you get into a bigger ensemble and the stakes are bigger, it made me just kind of relax a little bit and say like, you know, I could pick my moments. I could pick one or two moments a night and try to go for it. That
is one thing that you do incredibly well, because I've seen you. I think the first time we ever had a conversation was that you guys were playing some hotel in DC or whatever, and it's pretty fun. I just remember listening to your parts, and that was one of the things that I appreciated most was like even your leads were like were very tasteful. They had their place. And I could tell it wasn't like, oh, this is my chance to like rip something. Great, let me do that for 4 bars and then get back into the song. No. It was like everything you did was like you said, like in like looking at accentuating what the vocals were doing, or you know, what in service to the song. But even when like not just solos, like just your guitar parts, you did a lot of like really cool, either just like. You can see you kind of like filling in like small chords, doing a lot of triads and stuff. Yeah. And so
triad boy for life.
Me too. Yeah. a lot of value in that. There's a lot of wisdom in triads for guitar players.
Never ends.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And they're in every style. Yeah. But I really appreciated that about your playing. I was like, man, it's really, really clean and nice, and you know, if it just fit the band. You could have told me you were playing like groovy and soul music for like your entire, like that's what you were mainly into, and I'd have
learned a lot. You know, I learned a lot from John, who was the bass player, and
shout out John Days, great dude.
And he had this one like kind of quote that it sticks. I tell a lot of people this. I honestly don't know if he remembers saying this, but his action on his bass is like weirdly high. I don't know if you ever played it. And I was like fighting it one day, and I was
that's like his old bass. He's got like a
he's got
his
some
60s.
Nice stuff. Yeah. He's got some other nice. John's moving up in the gear world.
That's right.
But yeah, and he said, and I was like, why is your action so high? And he said it keeps me humble. And I was like, that was like the fewest words. That's kind of how John is. He's kind of like, he'll say something that means a lot, but you have to kind of think about it. And then I was like, interesting. Like, he doesn't want to show off. He just wants to play the tune. And I have so much more respect these days for these players that just kind of aren't like, they're not shredders. They're not any of the stuff. They just sound good all the time. And I just rethought about my playing, and that's just what I wanted to walk away from every show being like, I just wanted to play as perfectly as I could play, and it's still like, you know, I don't think I'll ever get there, but it's
no, we will certainly, we'll never be perfect in our own eyes. I'm far from perfect, I think, in anyone's eyes, but but I, you know, we are normally like the biggest critics of our own. We notice stuff that no one's ever going to notice. I talk a lot about this specifically with gear and tone, like using the Kemper. People will never know. I always use the example of one of the effects that the Kemper does really well built in is actually their overdrive. They have one overdrive, but all these presets basically it tweaked differently, it's their blues breaker presets are actually really good. Like, so if I put them up against my Prince of Tone, they sound basic. Like, you can make them sound exactly the same. No one in the crowd's going to notice, but like for me, I do some things where like I'll put the Prince of Tone on my board just for me, because I like how it feels. I know that there's just something about.
But that's why people go. I mean, that's why I know you're a Kemper guy. It just must feel good for you. I feel like there's a lot of gear that comes down to like just how do you feel, how do you look, how are you going to play, how confident are you, and it has nothing to do with the sound. And I think that's what a lot of people like maybe miss about gear is it's like your gear is in service of you feeling good and being like, you know, and sometimes for some guys that's a vintage thing, for some guys that's a Kemper, but everyone has their type of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's the consistency where I know I don't have to worry about it. You know.
And I kind of like I'm the opposite. Like I like when my amp starts rattling and I'm like, this is gonna be a terrible gig. I can't hear anything. And it's like I played for so long like that without in-ears, without anything that it's just like I have like a kind of comfort in like the chaos. Like you just cranking pedals and just like seeing what happens.
Yeah. No, I like that. And that's why like people, when a lot of folks that I know that use a Kemper, they just use that as an all-in-one and that's it. Like I even have the Kemper stage and you can totally do gigs with just that, but I don't like that. I like, because the thing I actually really like about it, and I bring a cab on stage normally, is with drive pedals and stuff, it acts like a guitar amp. It really does.
Great. You know, it's funny because I knew you were coming over and I was like, I got out my Kemper yesterday and I was like, I'm going to AB it with this magnetone, like all this stuff. And it's like, it sounds great. Like I'm not a hater of digital stuff because it does, like, it sounds great. It feels great. You know, I try like other of the digital stuff. It doesn't react exactly the same.
That's the way I feel too. The sound is probably, you know, comparable, but the feel is not.
The Kemper?
The Kemper against, like, I've played, like, I've messed around with fractal stuff. The FM2, FM3, I think is what they're called, or whatever. XFX2, XFX3. I know they've come a long way, so maybe that's totally different now, but it just didn't feel the same to me. The Kemper felt most like an amplifier. It does feel
very, and I have like the powered cab. I just use whatever cab I feel like using. It sounds great, but I think it might be like a looks thing for me. And I know that's like super dumb.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's dumb at all. Like, cause we did a video shoot for our band for like a promo thing, and I was toying around with the idea because all I need is my pedal board because it has my stage on it. It's got I have a couple delays on there and whatever, and I actually was toying around with the idea of one of my friends has a Marshall Blues Breaker. And I was like, dude, should I call him and go get that thing for the video?
Looks good.
Because it looks good. That's exactly your point, right? Is like, should I do that or should I just have my cab there with my little rack case with that as my power amp? That's what I ended up doing because at the end of the day, I was like, it's not going to make that much difference for me, like driving over to someone's house a half an hour away, lugging this massive amplifier and like all that stuff.
A little secret about some Oh He Dead barn recordings is, I won't say which one, but there is a video where you see a Princeton and you see a Deluxe and you see a Swart, and it's just their amps in the picture, but it's a Kemper. It's high. They're plugged in and everything, and it looks like, but it's
are the lights on too? Like they're turned on?
The Kemper is sitting behind an amp, and I was like, this is so much easier. I wasn't introducing noise into the room. Like
I'll have to go back and guess. I'll let you know. But is it on it's on your guys' record? Or is it on a video
or something?
Okay.
Yeah. It's just funny to me. Like even I will use it and like not tell people I'm using it. But it's like, you know, I have nothing but love for digital stuff.
No, that's cool. But I don't want to say, there is an aspect of me though. I know what you're saying with on a gig, a bit of like being able to like be calm in the midst of chaos, because that's really what most gigs are. Unless you've played that room a million times and it's the same sound engineer and it's like the same thing. Unless that's the case, every gig has like just stuff happens. Like every single one's different. It's all crazy. But there's something about being able to like, it's like I like problem solving. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's just like basically like complex problem solving. It's like, oh, this person's whatever's not working, or we forgot that, or you know, my amp's doing this weird thing, or you know, oh, like I played a gig a few weeks ago where I had I still don't know what the cause was, but my whole signal changed. So somewhere in my drive section that goes into my Kemper input, there was like a bad cable or something. And so my new method of fixing this is just because all my drives line up in front. Like I have my Kemper, like the stage. If this is like my pedal board, I have like the stage like up at the top, and then I have like drives in front of it.
Yeah.
And so my troubleshooting method was literally just like kick every drive until like it fixes it.
Yeah.
And so like I kicked a random one, and then like my signal came back, and I was like, oh great, now I can get through now I can get through the gig.
I kind of like that stress. Our first headlining gig at 9:30 like a month ago.
I was gonna ask about this.
Deluxe like just didn't work. Like it was rattling, and like he was real stressed, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're gonna do. Like I can't fix this right now.
Yeah.
And like you could tell, but like to me, some part about that is like I don't know if I'm just like asking to like fail or something, but there's something about me that like is funny.
It's a romantic quality
it's
too,
just like,
you know.
And he ended up borrowing Gordon Sterling's amp, and it worked fine. But like even having to borrow another amp for a gig, and just being like, I gotta make this work. A lot of people hate that. I think it's like, you know, I'll show up to a gig. I just showed up to a gig 2 days ago and just was like, I'm just going to use whatever's on the back line. It was a rolling jazz chorus. I was like, we'll make this work.
That's super cool, man. That's like one of the, and it's a great, you do see it on back lines a lot because it's solid state.
Yeah,
and it sounds great. Like it really was a staple for a long time. It really
worked.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't super psyched about it, but then part of it's just like, whatever, there's 20 people here.
So there's only one question that I ask every single person I sit down with, and you just sort of like walked, you just stepped right in it. So we're just going to get to it now. So say you get a call for a gig, you've never played for this artist before. You can put whatever guitar you want on your back and whatever, and your cables and your tuner, right? So you got all that stuff, but you have 2 hands left to grab gear and go out the door with. What are you going to take, not knowing that you know there's a backline amp there, but you don't know what it is? Like you kind of have a gist for like what style it's going to be and all that stuff. So you can only grab 2 pieces of gear, and it can't be like your whole pedal board. It's got to be like 2 things off of it or something. Yeah. So like you have 2 hands to grab stuff. What are you going to take to be able to like make that gig work?
That's a hard question. I'll probably bring a Princeton, honestly.
No, you can't bring an amp. There's
amp.
a backline amp there.
Backline.
So the venue says no.
Essentially.
So, two whatevers. I don't want to limit people too much. I had somebody cheat and just say the Kemper, so I'm not allowing that answer anymore.
I'm not going to bring a Kemper. I would honestly, you know, I'm trying to look at my pedal board right now. Of recent, I would probably bring a Strymon Deco.
Okay. I've never played this, so talk to me about it.
It's just, I just started
It's a delay pedal.
It's a delay.
Or is it an echo?
It's not an echo. It's a tape saturation pedal. So it sounds kind of like tape, but you can make it a distortion, and it has a tape like echo-like thing on it.
So it's like a lo-fi delay, kind of?
It sounds like an old slapback.
Okay.
But you can get a little delay. You can get a chorusy sound. You can get a phaser sound. And you can get a distortion sound on the other side. So it's like one of those pedals that you can...
Oh, so is it like the... Okay, so I've seen it over here. It's in small... It's a smaller format, right?
Yeah.
So one side is a drive?
One side like a tape saturation, and one side is like, I don't even know what they call it, a double tracker. So you can get a handful. So if it's like a soul gig and I just need a chorus sound, and I need to boost my sound a little bit for a solo, or try to dial the amp in and make it a little warmer, like that pedal could do it.
Yep.
It's not like necessarily the best at all of these things, but it works. It's like, I find it's like everything I play now, I'm like, I have a reason for it. You can put it at the front of your chain, or you can put it at the back end. And it just kind of, it's become almost an always on type.
That's
pedal.
crazy. I might have to mess with that. I might have to hear you demo that a little bit before I leave, but...
I might just bring like...
Because I have no idea. I understand the things that you just said. Yeah. I have no idea how that would actually work in a pedal format. You know what I mean?
I didn't understand.
It doesn't it makes no sense. I honestly
saw a YouTube video of, I think it was like Rhett Scholl or someone, was like, this is a great, like the best like Strymon pedal. And I was like, what? And then I went and played one, and I was like, this is interesting. I wonder how I could incorporate this into my amp. And it's awesome. And then I'd probably bring like, just like, I'm not a crazy, like I like pedals and I use them for songs, but I could go whole gig with just a cable.
Sure.
And I'd probably bring like an EP boost or something in case I needed to like, or any type of boost on. Like I'm not like a real picky guy.
What if it's a rolling jazz chorus though, and you're not going to be able to get it to like break up? It's not like you can crank it up like your Princeton and get that break up and just sort of like mess with your volume knob all night. Like If you had to have some drive sounds, like how would you?
You have to have a drive.
You know what I mean? Like, because that jazz chorus is clean.
And I don't mind that. Like, I'll play a whole gig just super clean. But if I needed to like a pedal, I'd probably bring the King of Tone.
Okay.
Just because it has the two different drives, it has the high gain side. Yep. I have other pedals I like more. I'm not like I was on the wait list for years. I'm not like I'm not saying I'm not like a fanboy of King of Tone, but it does what it does really well.
Yeah. I'm on the wait list. I have a Prince of Tone. I'm on the wait list. I've been on there for like 2 years. So hopefully I'm coming up at some point here soon.
Could be like a year,
but I hear you. I'm not expecting it. My expectations are not where the internet puts the hype, if that makes sense.
It won't change. It's like kind of like a Klon or whatever. If you ABM with like an Archer or something, yeah, the Klon sounds great. And I've have friends that have them, but I don't know if I'd pay. There's one at Action Music for $4,700. So like,
yeah, I'm gonna have to stop by there on the way home. You were talking. They had some kind of crazy collection. I may have to stop in there and check it out.
3 guitars.
Yeah. I'm gonna like leave my wallet in the car, or I'll be in trouble. But
bring like a $5 bill.
Yeah, no kidding. I hear that. But it makes sense. I mean, the King of Tone. I'm expecting it to be really, really great. But I'm not. Yeah, but I'm not expecting it to like be the answer to all my problems, because I still need to like learn how to play guitar in a lot of ways.
I agree. And that's why like, I'm actually very lucky. I feel like for my playing that I feel fortunate that I didn't get into pedals or amps or guitars until I was probably 25. I'm 30 now. So I've dug in deep in the last 5 years, but I didn't own an amp in college most of the time. But I was just playing clean forever. And that was like kind of helpful, because like, when you start throwing on reverbs and delays, you can sound real good real fast.
No, I hear you. That's true. There's nothing to hide behind.
In
that regard.
And I really like that. I really like clean players.
I get that. Well, that's cool. All right, so you're gonna bring in King of Tone and the Deco, and you can pretty much do anything with it.
I don't know about anything, but I mean everything that I've ever
anything
done.
That you need to do, anything that you get a call for.
I'm not getting calls for metal gigs or anything.
No,
or hard rock or like I think that would cover pretty much everything I do.
Nice. Well, cool. I think that's a solid answer. I'm excited. I think a dual overdrive is I do want to do a video on dual drives at some point, because they're some of the best, bang for the buck. Because you basically get 2 pedals in one, but it's incredibly helpful, and you can use them in a number of ways. I just got one that is like kind of I got my hands on a D&M drive, like that pedal show. They're one with Keeley.
Interesting.
And I got it just because it was on Reverb at a decent price, but there was a bunch of them at that price, and I was like, I watched that pedal show for way too many hours a week, and I was like, and I particularly liked Mick's typically a Strat player, as am I, and I like what he does with the right side of that. I think it's just he uses it as an always on thing when he's doing a lot of stuff. I'm like, man, that sounds great. So I put an offer in on one, and I encourage people, like, if there's a pedal that you've been wanting to buy and it's for sale, like, make someone a reasonable offer, and if they accept it, I'm sure that they get to put a few bucks in their pocket, and you get a pedal you like. Like, don't feel bad putting an offer in on something. I hear people like, well, I feel kind of like crappy. I'm like, no, the seller actually chooses whether or not they want to let people make offers or not. I don't know if you've ever sold anything on there, but
I've put in offers on plenty of stuff, and I always say, like, look, I understand if you just want to sell this. I think if you're just cool, people are willing to. I normally say that, because I've had people make offers on gear I've sold on there, and I accept the offer, and then I won't hear from them. They won't pay for like a couple days. It's like annoying. So I always tell people, like, hey, I don't want to go higher than this, but I'm willing to pay this, and if you accept, I'll keep an eye on my phone and I'll pay today. And I literally say the same thing. I will pay right now. But I also, like, if I sell stuff on Reverb and I'm gonna say that I'll take an offer, I'm expecting to sell it for less.
Absolutely. Yeah, you build that in. I mean, I've bought and sold gear a lot over the years. I mean, I've done this with a lot of things. Like during college, my dad was a mechanic, so I grew up around cars, and so I've flipped a lot of cars. Bought, I've been into Subarus for a long time, and if you know anything, if you ever worked on Subarus, they're all kind of the same. They're like Legos. You can use a lot of parts interchangeably, and so I've bought, and my dad was like a master Subaru mechanic. So, I used to, buy a blown up Subaru, which happens all the time because people don't know how to maintain them. And then, and then you put an engine in it and flip it and whatever. And so I've flipped and sold a ton of stuff, cars, music gear, everything over the years. People really just want to get a deal more than they really actually care about the price, I think.
I believe that.
And so like here's your asking price, right? And then here's the price that you're actually willing to get. And as long, if you can get somewhere in the middle there and people feel like they got a deal and you are able to get rid of some stuff, great.
Yeah.
Perfect. It works great. But anyway, so I put in an offer on this D&M drive and it wasn't a whole lot. I mean, it was like $20 less than they were asking.
Yeah.
And so they accepted. I was honestly like, I don't know if they're going to accept it. They did. And so I got it. And man, I tell you what, like dual overdrive pedals, some of the best value you'll ever get. It's so crazy because that one you can put the boost in front or at the end, so you can switch the pedal, the circuit order, and you can use them both for a lot of different things.
Yeah. So especially if you're only taking I actually do a lot of gigs where I'll just take a pedal or two. King of Tone's great because I can dial in an amp a little bit. I can leave one side on.
So do you have the regular? You just have the regular kind of. Do you have the high gain option?
High gain option.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know what the difference is? Because you've had two of them. You're telling me earlier.
High gain options because I actually was gonna get one for a friend and then he ended up getting another one, so I ended up selling it. But we both wanted the high gain option. It's not that high gain.
Why is that? Because when my order comes up, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I have one. You can play it, but it just is a little more crunchy. It just especially if I was playing indie rock or something, and I wanted to leave just like a pedal on the whole night and just have it just.
I do that with my Princeton Tone my Prince of Tone all the time.
And so depending on the gig, I'll just leave that higher gain side up, and then just leave the other side as a boost. Or if I'm playing like an Oh He Dead gig, I'll use them both. So like halfway through a solo, I'm not a volume knob guy. I never have been. I'm kind of weird, but I don't touch I touch the pickup selector, but I just leave volume cranked. Very
nice.
weird.
No, so you work on your
pedals.
playing dynamics a lot too.
Yeah. So then if I really need a little boost for something to stick out above CJ's voice or Andy's, I'll hit on a boost. And if I want to if I want to go crazy, then I'll hit on the high gain side and just start.
Nice.
Take off.
That's cool. So that makes total sense with that pedal because I think that he kind of designed that to if you're putting it into it doesn't color the tone of your amp. It's still, if you use that at least with the Prince Tone, which I understand is that pedal show actually did a really funny episode where they said 2 Prince of Tones equals King of Tone. Have you seen that video?
Yes, I have.
It's pretty funny. So the answer is no. The answer is it's not. But the one side is basically the same. So using that, you can. It still sounds like whatever amp you plug it into.
Yeah, but I've noticed I keep the volume sometimes about the same on the boost. I don't even up the volume hardly at all, and I just turn the treble up on one side. And just that,
it
helps you cut a little bit. And so it's just they're just all tools to do what you're trying to do. And the dual overdrive does have a lot of ways you can use it. I've seen people use them a bunch of different ways. You can use pedals, but there is something for a long time, I just showed up for gigs with a Strymon Flint and a King of Tone.
I've heard the Flint's the best pedal in the world.
It's great.
Probably need to get one at some point.
For probably almost 2 years, that's all I brought to a gig. No delay, no anything, just these 2 pedals. I kind of did everything I was trying to do.
That works because it has that thing has. It has a delay on it, right? It's got trim. That's it. I've heard the trim's gorgeous on it though.
Yeah, and if I had a backline amp that had a really nice reverb, I would use that, and then I would crank the reverb and use a delay or something.
Right.
That's another kind of Swiss. I don't use it anymore because honestly, it's a space issue at this point. But
that's funny.
Great pedal.
Yeah, I hear you though. It's but I think the duals are great because it's a lot of value. You can do a lot of stuff. Yeah. See, I'm the opposite with when playing. I'm not a set the levels and leave it. I kind of am that way with my drives. You'll very rarely see me tweaking my drive settings because I have 3. I normally stack 3 overdrives.
Oh wow!
So and they're all relatively low.
Tone,
I have pretty. I'll say this: you'll pretty much always hear a drive pedal on, but I do a lot of pretty clean funk kind of kick it to get kind of
and you
stuff.
use a drive. Interesting. I'm always interested in how people use for funk stuff because I'm a no pedal guy, but then some guys get some incredible tones.
I find that it really helps. It helps. I use a first stage drive for that kind of stuff to more like focus the tone. A lot of drive pedals will actually either take away some low end or sort of do something to focus the mids a bit. And so I use I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is. For like you're saying, like they're all tools. I can use my Prince of Tone. I could use a Klon type circuit.
Yeah.
I could use the right side of the D&M drive. I can use I love my Timmy. My Timmy is like my favorite overdrive of all time.
I know they're great.
They're incredible. So I could use 4 or 5 pedals that I own for this, but if you just set the gain really low, I set the volume just above unity gain, so like when you turn it on and off, it just gets like a touch louder, just like a little bit louder. It's not really adding volume though. It's just I don't want to add compression and not add volume.
Yeah.
So I just have it a little bit higher than unity gain.
Too?
No, I don't really. It's not really my thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've had them in the past. I was talking with Jeremy about this. Like that's why I was so skeptical about the D&M drive. Is because I just made like a blanket generalization about Keeley that I just don't like them because I tried the 2 and the 4 knob and it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm dumb like that.
Too.
It's just it was too much. It did too much. It squashed too much. It added too much color. It just removed. I like picking dynamics. I roll my volume back a lot. And especially for the like that funky stuff on my strats, it's got to be like not a ton, like roll the volume back to like 8 or something. So it's still like chimey and has enough high end. But anyway, for funk, that kind of like real funky clean stuff, I think drives will do a lot of work at helping sort of like focus. It's almost like it's putting it's not really compression. It's really more what it does with the EQ, but it kind of removing some stuff, removing some low end and really kind of focusing your mids a bit. It really helps kind of, and I keep them pretty trebly that first stage though. But it really helps kind of just keep the tone there that needs to be there.
I used a diamond compressor for 3 years with OE Dead, and I felt like it did a similar thing. And
I have used that one. It's not as, and I use an optical compressor for a long time where it doesn't, I like when it's like light compression or if they have a blend.
I would turn the compressor down almost all the way and just use it almost as like a tone shaping tool.
The circuit just does the compression.
And then it was weird during COVID. I was just, I was out in this barn. You couldn't hang out with anyone. I was just cranking amps, like probably ruining my ears. And I just decided I was going to go a year with no compression, mostly no gain. And I just was working on my right hand. And I found that like a lot of the stuff that I was using pedals for, maybe I didn't need, or maybe I wanted to just focus on practicing with no reverb, no pedals, and I still think the pedals I use are still super valuable, but I definitely noticed it's a good tool for any guitarist out there to just don't use reverb, don't use anything when you're practicing, and just see what happens with your right hand. You'll notice it gets softer. You just get the feel is a little nicer. And I've heard people like Mark Lettieri talk about this and all those guys, but not to put myself in a category of someone like that.
No kidding. Well, no, I was gonna say I bought his jam play course over COVID. And so same thing. Yeah. Can I play like Mark? Absolutely not. But a lot of his, I've always kind of liked like right hand kind of, again, being a drummer, I think my right hand is actually more one of my strengths because I'm not like a shredder kind of guy at all. I like more like singing leads, like big bends, holding, sustaining, high notes, that kind of stuff. I love that. But my right hand for rhythm stuff's always been kind of my strength because I actually really like gigs where I get to just be a rhythm guitar player.
Me too.
Because I can just lock in with the drummer and the bass player and like really, and that's actually a lot of the pop stuff that I do with the band I play with now is a lot of fun for that reason. I'm just doing guitar parts and I'm sticking up. We have a really good, our drummer's great. And so he locks in and I just stick my parts like right just on the back of the beat a little bit and just like lock them in there. And that's great. But with Mark's course, I saw when he was doing a lot of funk stuff. I normally am doing most of the muting with my right hand. I saw him actually doing both. He mutes with it. That's how his stuff is like so pronounced and so muted. He's actually muting with his right and his left hand a bit.
I actually do that too.
Yeah, I do it now, but I didn't do it until like a year ago. I did it, yeah.
It's really helpful, and that stuff is so hard to play. Like people definitely like, you know, I teach guitar, and I've seen students be like, yeah, I can play this, and it's like, and then I show them back on a recording, and I do this myself. I listen to myself, and I'm like, oh my god, I suck. So it's like it's such a hard thing to just play clean, and that's been my like, you know, that's been my sort of focus these last few years. It's just fun. It's just a new thing. I go down rabbit holes, and that's been my thing.
I think there's a lot of value for that though, because like when you just focus on trying to work on one aspect of your, I mean that's what like professional athletes, it's like what anybody does. It's like focus on like one thing for a while and really like
and I'm an obsessive person. So if I go down a rabbit hole, I'm 4 or 5 months, and then I burn out and I don't even want to think about guitar. And I practice twice a year now is what I keep up with my stuff, and like you know, I'm always
you play gigs,
playing. I'm playing, and I'm still I'm jamming. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm playing a few hours a day, but in terms of real focused practice, I only have the stamina to do it like twice a year. And when I say I like stamina, I deep dive. Like I'm logging hours. I'm playing 4 or 5 hours a day.
Oh wow.
I'm doing, and then after a month or two, I just don't want anything to do with this topic. And then 6 months later, I go into like, you know, right now I'm on a big rock and roll kick, and I've joined a band called Cal Rifkin.
Yeah. So you were just playing with them the other night, right?
And that's a band where I told Eric is an amazing songwriter. He writes the music. I've dug his songs. I've known him for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. He lived up in Boston when I lived there. And he was like, oh, you should rip solos on some of these tunes. And like, I will, I've told him like, I just want to be like,
that was what was so curious to me. Cause there was like one, it was some like, I think you had on your Instagram story or something, like quote, you know, somebody else had shot at the show, and you were playing a lot of notes. And I was like, hey, all right. I like that.
And it's funny because it's just like, I even told him, he was like, do you want to take a solo on this? I was like, I kind of just want to sit back and like what you're talking about. I just want to play the parts. I want to have one thing where I'm like the background guitarist, and it still ends up to just being a jam. But you know, I will occasionally play a lot of notes. Yeah, and I'm always like, I don't even know if this is good, but I'm having fun.
Hey, I hear you on that. It's funny. Like a lot of times when you know, you really do need to focus on like what you're best at, and really my biggest value in a band is that I can. I've spent a lot of time over the years focusing on my background harmonies. So I think if a band really like was to like try to book me, a big value there is like even if you don't tell me to, like as I'm learning the tunes, my brain's automatically like picking up the harmonies and stuff. That's awesome. So I'll be in rehearsals. There's been plenty of rehearsals where like I just show up, set my gear up and whatever, you're in rehearsal, but I'm like playing the parts where I'm like singing harmonies. They're like, we should give you a microphone. And I'm like, all right, cool. So that's like, that's just like what my brain does. So that's like, you know, I've tried to like focus on that. But a lot of like the real, you know, I do plenty. I love rock gigs. Rock gigs are great. But I've never been like a real, you know, crazy shreddy guitar player. So like I don't, you know, I take leads, and bands sometimes want to have me back, so I guess it's all right. It ends up okay, I guess. But I hear you. It is a little strange sometimes. You're like, is this even that good? Like, I don't know.
I've like, it's funny because I sort of developed my like sound of like maybe a chaotic or a rock solo or this stuff, and it's just something you kind of hone in over the years of like, I know what can get a reaction. And it's funny because like sometimes you just need to do the thing that gets the crowd into it. And you play a lot of bar gigs where people aren't listening to CJ or they're not listening to whatever. And I know if I play like a shit ton of notes and I just go off, like it's not like my favorite thing in the world to do, and it's fun, I'm not gonna lie. But like I can get the attention back on the band. And just that has been a tool for me. Like sometimes the shred thing is like an amazing tool to get the focus back on a singer.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about it that way before. You hear a lot of the big, like great rock and roll frontman like Alice Cooper and all these guys that they've talked about this plenty, like at nauseum about, you know, when you hear, did you watch that thing on Netflix? It was like a hired gun or whatever. It was about all like the hired musicians behind a lot of these like really big acts from like the 80s and whatever. But he talks about, like Alice Cooper always talks about, he's like, when I'm like through, you know, 90% of the song, like the spotlight's on me. I'm the front man, blah, blah, blah. When you do a lead, you need to step up to the front of the stage, and like spotlight is on you, and then and own it, like make the crowd eat it up, and then when you're done, flip back in, I take over, and then it's good. And so that's always been my mentality with solos is, you know, there's a lot of solos like that, you know, I might even want to use my expression pedal for something like, when I'm holding notes, have some kind of like ridiculous delay repeats come on, or like, I don't know, just like whatever you can want to use an expression pedal for. Sure. But I will choose to not do that, to be able to step out in front of my pedal board and engage the crowd. Because it is certainly a tool to get people. And it's funny, like a lot of my, like, there's a lot of guys that'll just do a lot of like the, you know, typically if I'm like doing fast note stuff, it's going to be a lot of like hammer-ons. So I can sit up there and hammer 3 or 4 notes, and same 3 or 4 notes for like until it's, this is kind of what you're talking about, where like the crowd almost like catches on, or like, he's playing the same notes over and over really fast, and you're like, oh my God, and then people go crazy. But it's like, it's not even the hardest thing you've played all night, and certainly not the most interesting. But it gets the crowd really. And I think like,
especially for, I'm talking about a pop setting, about like the band is sort of in what, you know, you got to think
you're
about,
there
like,
to entertain a crowd.
I'm there to entertain. And I used to not have this attitude. I used to be like, you know, more of like I wanted to play avant-garde music. And I wanted to like do extensive solos, and I wanted people to like buy into this, like, where am I going, like all this stuff, which I still like doing, but that's like, it's another gig. I sort of have other outlets for that, and I still really like doing that, and I'm gonna probably continue to play a 10-minute solo the rest of my life. But if I'm at a pop gig and I have 45 seconds and I don't entertain the crowd, then I see my job as like, you know, failed in a way. And
no,
like
that's 100% the right way to think about it. And I think a good thing about having this sort of thought process is, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but like I've been talking about doing an all original band again, and it's because it's a big investment, man. It's a lot of time. It's
makes me tired thinking about
blood, sweat, and tears, dude. It's blood, sweat, and tears. You got to find the right people, and you know, it's a whole thing. But you know, I'll probably just do a project though. It's like whatever that project is, like maybe it's gonna be a project that like where it is like a rock and roll thing. And then like, the solos are going to be to like entertain people and get people pumped up and whatever.
And that's actually kind of what I do in my free time, like outside, is I have projects. Like I did an album like 6 years ago, never played a show. It was just a full-length album, had my friends record it, and it was called Heart Kid. I don't even know if you can find it anywhere, but it was just for me. And it was like, I had a bunch of heart surgeries. That's actually like, so I had quit sports, and that's when I started playing guitar, is because I realized I wasn't going to be able to go play like professional sports or whatever. Well, that could have been a pipe dream, but that was my dream at the time. So this album, which is all about my experience, I had documented like, you know, I had like field recordings of hospitals and beeps and all this stuff, and it was just something for me. And then I finished that project, and like, at the end of it, I was like, people might like this, people might not. It wasn't and then I moved on.
Don't care, not the point.
Yeah, it was not the point. Now I have like a trio. It doesn't even have a name, and we just play tunes, and occasionally like an arts council or someone will hire us to do something, and we get to play for an hour, and it's like, that's what helps about playing in bands and networking, is occasionally you have an outlet to put on a show that's like, this is mine. Like, this is just like a weird, I'm the front person. Because I'm, you know, as guitar players or rhythm people, we're like in the back of the spotlight. And that's singers, where I want to be.
And there's a lot of value in, I think, like there's a lot of value and a lot of wisdom in understanding very early that in most bands, it's about the vocals, it's about the singers. You know what I mean? Because that's, when you talk about people connecting with the music, I mean, that is the majority of the way that people understand. You know, and connect. And so that's the biggest deal.
And so that's why, my thing has been songwriting, I guess, for the last few years. Like, that's what that's my way of contributing
for you.
To a pop group. Feeling like I'm a part of the whole thing, is I'd pump out just an enormous amount of music, and then people like some stuff and they don't, and it's like it's a fun way to like kind of have another impact than just being on stage. But it's like, I'm a very like kind of shy in weird way. Like, I don't like big crowds. I don't like loud noises. It's kind of I chose like a terrible career for this. But like I was nervous to do this interview because I don't really talk to that many people like outside. Funny. But it's like for whatever reason, like, it's just too fun to stop.
No, I hear you. There is a beauty of like or like a weird irony in that a lot of the venues that I play, you will rarely, like, I'm not getting to play. I want to hear about 930 Club a little bit, but like, you know, so I'll go to 930 Club and see bands I love. But most like the venues that I play, like, you're not going to actually find me hanging out there a lot. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like, it's too much for me. It's a lot. I've gotten more introverted over the years. And it's just too much. I
try to go support as many shows as I can, like, for sure, because I have this thing about, like, if you expect people to come to your show, you want to sort of, but I can't do that as much as I'd like, because it's like whether I like can't socialize that night, or I just like I've played 4 nights in a row, and it's like you need a night on the couch, dude. So now it's like I'm going to about a show a month, maybe a couple shows a month, and I try to do just like bands in town, like friends and stuff. And that's the way that I could sort of contribute to like the scene in a way that I'm not like totally burned out. Because especially when you get going, I mean, right now I'm not playing like, you know, it was like before COVID, I was playing 120 gigs a year. And then it's really hard to go out. Now it's like, you know, a few a month. It's pretty, like, I don't really have an excuse.
Like, I hear you. Yeah.
But it'll get back to the point where I can't go again. But I'm on the same page as you about like it's rough.
It's a little interesting. No, that's cool though, man. I think it's really cool, like being able to do those projects though, and those like labor of love things where it's just for you. I mean, music for me, for a long time, like my childhood was very interesting. Like I don't even go into, I don't think I've gone into that at all in here much, but like music was very much an outlet for me. I had a bit of a turbulent, you know, family situation growing up, and music was always a thing. You know, I would get off the bus, you know, run inside and play drums until, you know, my parents got home from work or whatever. Like, it was always an outlet for me, like my entire life. And so I think there is a lot of power in that, I think.
Yeah, it's funny because the best songwriters, the best musicians, if you start getting to really meet them, you always start hearing like, it's always funny because it's like eventually you'll hear the story of like why they play music, and you're like, oh, it's just like a matter of time. Before it's like we had this weird like culture of like shared pain.
Musicians are a smattering. It's always like the Island of Misfit Toys thing, where it's like we are this smattering of just like,
because it's a weird job. Like, it's a weird thing to spend all your time doing this, to promote stuff that not very many people come to. It's like these ups and downs of ego things about like, oh, I have a show at 930 Club, but the next day I'm playing for $100 in the background of a bar solo guitar that no one cares about.
Right. I'm an amenity. No one is even.
But I like that. I mean, it keeps you humble. It keeps you like playing and practicing, and it's fun.
So what sport did you play? Were you like
baseball?
You're pretty oh, dude.
My jams.
Are you into, do you watch like Major League Baseball and all that stuff?
I do sometimes. I'm not as like big as, and you know, it's funny because when I stopped playing baseball, I stopped sports
getting into
altogether. So I didn't watch like anything, and it was just like, I'm playing guitar now. And it was like, you know, I had a guitar, but I didn't really play. And then it was when I made up my mind that I was like, I'm quitting baseball, I'm going down this path. Just like I said, I was an obsessive person. It was like the sports are no longer part of my life. And now I can enjoy it again, but there was a time where I was like, you know, it's just like, it was a lot.
Wasn't a part of your life anymore.
So now I can go to a game. I was trying to go to that Caps game yesterday, but I didn't make it. But hockey is my sport that I like.
Gotcha.
I like to watch.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I grew up, I was a little bit different. I was like I absolutely love baseball. And like I grew up playing, I grew up kind of, you know, I was a really small, scrawny kid. So like I was never like, you're like a pretty tall guy, like pretty, you know, I was like 5'2" forever. So like playing baseball, like legitimately, and I have horrible eyesight. So like going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage. It's very hard to hit a baseball. But you know, I was this weird kid that was like, you know, I'm not going to be able to play baseball when I'm 50. So I'm just going to focus on music. Because I started playing so young that I was always playing drums and doing sports, or playing music and doing, you know, when my brother was gone, like grabbing one of his guitars and messing with it or whatever. I was always doing that on top of like, you know, playing baseball or whatever. And so I quit sports from a very early age just because I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I was probably like, you know, 12 years old thinking like, I'm not going to be able to do this when I'm 50, so I don't want to do it anymore. Which is really ridiculous.
I had that same thing. It was like, if I can't play at like the level I want to play at, then it's not playing, which is kind of weird. But
that goes back to the obsessive thing, though. I'm very similar. Like if and my wife knows this to be true about me, and it kind of she sees it and kind of like drives her crazy. But when I get into something too, like my hobbies, I'm only into like a handful of things, but I'm really into those things. Like pour over coffee is one of those things. Like every morning, it's like part of my routine. It's something I really value. I just really enjoy it. It's not like I drink a ton of coffee. I only drink like maybe 8 ounces of coffee every morning. But I absolutely love it. And it's like, you know, things like that where it's like, oh, I got to get like this. I need like a burr grinder and I need to like get these like specific beans and I need to like
go down the espresso rabbit hole one.
I don't even want to do that. It's very expensive. A lot of those machines are like incredibly expensive.
I talked to someone the other day, a drummer, and he was like wanted one. And I was like, how much is it? Like $2,000? And he was like, at least. And I was like, woo. One
of my friends was talking about that. He used to work at a coffee shop. He lives down in Charleston. But he's like, yeah, my wife and I want to get one. The one he's like, there's one that's actually pretty decent for like $900 you can get. I'm looking at like $900 and the current like counter space in my apartment, and I'm like, there's no way this is
going to happen. Because even when I
happen.
had put a grinder on it, I was like, well, there goes the
that's right.
tiny counter.
That's right. The kettle sits there, the grinder. That's already like But anyway, so I totally get what you're saying about like kind of the obsessive thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's cool. I mean, you can't run. That's why I think like music is pretty sweet in general. It's a great hobby because there's so many like outlets. Like you can go to recording, you can go to like how your gear sounds, you can pick another instrument, you could do songwriting, you could be a gig player, you could play a cover, you know, there's just like there's always forever there'll be another
music
like,
thing to do. Yeah, definitely. You could like there's a ton of folks like that. I mean, even as a guitar player, like for me, you know, there's things that I've just sort of said no to. I don't really like really ridiculous extreme example is like I don't think I'll ever spend time sitting down learning how to sweep pick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how to do it. My brother growing up, he was an incredible guitar player even when he was in high school. And just like, and he loved all that. He played jazz, but he like loved all the technical metal stuff. He was like really into it. I plan on playing guitar, you know, Lord willing, as long as my body's able for the rest of my life, I would think. But I was like, I'm just not going to, there's things that I'm going to choose. Like, I'm just sort of choosing, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus on things that I, you know, but to your point, there's like so many things with music overall or just guitar that you can like focus on. So
just the thought of it can be overwhelming. And it's like every year you get better, you find another thing you didn't know about. But it's
totally. Yeah, it's a really fulfilling thing as an obsession too, because like you're talking about when you get down like a practice rabbit hole though, and you're like, I want to be able to do this and I can't, or like I see like there's this type of thing I want to be able to play and I currently can't. It is really like with that Mark Lettieri course, it's this way. Every single lesson, it's like, oh, here's this little, let me run through this little thing 2 times, and you watch that and you're like, I'm never going to be able to play that.
It's funny because I've done some of those and I've tried to make recordings to sound as good as him, and you're like, I think I can do it, but I can't do it at the same time. And it's like it's like how I feel about like, you know, when I first started, I was like, I could play this Green Day song or whatever, and then you're like, yeah, but it doesn't really have the feel.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then this is just to the next like level. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I can play the notes, but it doesn't have the feel that a guy like that has. And that
absolutely.
Is like, you know, well, that's what's cool about that is I could be 60 and be like, hey, I finally got it.
No, totally. And but even in that course, he says all the time, he's like, you know, he's like, mess around with this, do something, like take this and do something different. Like the point is not to play everything exactly the way that I play it. It's to incorporate it into your playing and do it in a way that makes sense for you. But like, it is really a gratifying thing because you'll watch him play something that is ridiculous. Just what you're talking about, the feel, like the way he slides into things. He does a lot of like chromatic, like there's like real smooth, funky sliding into stuff. Like, and you're just like, man, that's wild. I'm never going to be able to play that. And then you work on it for like 5 hours and then you can actually play it. That's one of the things with guitar. It's like, it's actually attainable. And I tell people this all the time. It's like, man, I wish I could play guitar. I'm like, dude, like go on Facebook Marketplace, buy one,
$50 guitar.
Go buy like a cheap like Squire Strat or whatever, a Telecaster or something. Like, you know, I think it is good to spend a little bit of money. That way you have a little, it's like, oh man, I spent $150 on that guitar. Like I should probably spend some time playing it.
That's actually why I recommend people taking lessons. It's not that YouTube isn't a tool or that you couldn't learn. It's because the same reason people get personal trainers or whatever.
It's a set schedule.
Like
yeah.
And I have a lot of students that are like in their 40s and 50s or like, you know, and started learning later in life, and they stick with it.
Yeah.
They can start playing, and it's like 2 or 3 years later, I'm like watching. I was playing with a student last week, and he just like played like a whole T-Rex tune note for note the whole way through.
Amazing.
And I was just like, holy shit, you actually did it.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like crazy.
The kids that actually practice are incredible. That's great.
Yeah.
I taught drums when I was in college, and I had students from, I want to say like 9 years old to like, one guy was like, I don't know how, I never asked, hey dude, how old are you? But he was like late 30s for sure. And he like was like, I was like, you know, what do you want to be able to do? And he's like, oh, I want to be able to play songs like this and, you know, jam with my friends. It's like, great. And he did it. Like, it's only like 6 months. The guy was like playing stuff, you know? It's like, it is pretty incredible. It's one of those things where it can, it's attainable. You can do it. I tell friends, pick up a guitar and, you know, pick it up every day. Play for 10 minutes. Yeah. Because if you do that, like,
stick it by your bed. It's like,
have one out on the stand. Like for me in my office, like there has to be a guitar out on the stand. Otherwise, it's like it's just removing all the barriers. Like, well, then I got to open my case and pull it out.
Acoustic guitars are good. I recommend.
Very true.
Like, if you have, like, I don't know. I'll have a guitar pretty much in every room, and most of them are just like these old cheapo acoustic guitars. But it's like there's nothing you have to plug in to make it work.
Right.
It just does it.
All the barriers to get it going.
Pick, like you just play.
Yeah. I agree with that. As long as you do it, like, because when you tell people like, hey, just pick it up and play for 10 minutes, you end up playing a lot longer than 10 minutes normally. Like you'll pick it up and just start noodling with stuff, and then you're like, oh crap, I gotta make dinner, or I gotta do whatever, you know. For sure. That's awesome. So definitely agree there. Yeah. Well, last couple of things I want to talk to you about. One was, how was it playing 930 Club? How was it headlining 930 Club, packing the room out on a Saturday night? That's got to be insane. I was talking to John about this. I was like, dude, you lived so many, like hundreds and thousands of musicians' dreams that night. Like that's, if you live around the DC area.
Like I was conscious about it, but I like at the time, you know, my head was just in like, you know, we got to put on the best show we've ever played. You know, I think everyone was like conscious of like we needed to play well because, you know, it was like 850 people came out during COVID ridiculous. With masks on and all this shit, which is wild. And it was, you know, growing up, it wasn't even a dream of mine, I'll be honest, because the dream of mine was Black Cat. And I didn't even think that big. That's hilarious. Yeah. And like, because I was going to shows at Black Cat and 930 Club since I was 15.
You're a tall dude. You're like, I want to like almost hit my head on the ceiling.
And then I played Black Cat and I was like, holy shit, like I did
it's
it.
It's a big deal.
I still think like fondly of that first show there. And then getting 930 was just like, it was kind of surreal because we had tried to get it like many times. Like we'd emailed, and then we got a booking agent who just kind of made it happen. And then we were like, we really got to sell tickets, this whole thing. And it just sounds so good. You just know that you feel like you're in the presence of like people that, you know, you walk in the wall and you see REM and like you see all these bands that I like.
So crazy. And we've all seen so many bands there too, where it's like, I can't believe that I'm playing on stage that all these folks have.
Yeah, and it's like I love small rooms. I love DC9, all of these places, but there is something very magical about that room. And I think it's just because like, if you grew up in the area, because it was an all ages venue. Like, so chances are,
I mean, we would drive 2.5 hours to come to shows.
And you could see, like, my friend's dad was a manager there when we were like, and my first show there was hilariously Soja, the reggae band from like Centerville or whatever. When I was like 15, and it's just seeing a bunch of bands that ended up blowing up or were already famous was just like, you know, it was crazy. And you're just like a kid in the audience, and then one day you look and you're like looking out at the audience, and I had this kind of weird like dissociation for a second. That was like, is this really me? And it feels good, and you know, you have to be grateful and humble that like we were able to do that, because it's like, you know, I've put in a ton of hours to this band recording, and you know, everyone's been promoting, and it's a real like
driving to other cities for shows and playing for 10 people,
but other people
like,
do
all
that too. So I'm very conscious of the fact that it's like I'm grateful.
It's a blessing, man. Cool.
Yeah, it's truly like it was like an honor to play there, and I hope like, you know, I hope by all of the bands, like whether it be like you know, whoever's blowing up in DC right now, that it's like it helps the scene get a little bigger. It helps like a band like Oh He Dead that might be like, you know, able to draw a decent amount of people. Then we'll have Gordon Sterling, someone open, and people see how good he is. And I hope that the scene just like, that's why I mean, I personally want to live here forever. Like just because I think it's like it was such a terrible scene growing up. Or at least I perceived it to be a terrible scene. I would go to places like, you'd play in like St. Louis, and then they'd be like, all these people go to the show, and then they go to the next show, and then they go to a house. And it was like, I never felt that form of community here, but I do now. Like, I feel like I see the same people at every shows. I go to shows. I've met people that I only know from shows.
Right.
And it's like, it's starting. And I think it's been starting. And if it keeps going this way, I think DC will be like a legitimately amazing music city in like 5 or 10
in its own right and in its own unique way, because DC is a very interesting place.
History.
So many people in and out of here. History of music too.
So it's like, I don't see why we can't compete with Philly or New York or like, and I think we are. Like, there's so many good musicians that, it's like I feel like once every month I find someone else who I'm like, dude, that cat can like play.
It's crazy. Absolutely. There's so many people around here. I don't know. I mean, I've lived here for like, I live in Maryland. I live on the Maryland side of DC. I'm within the Beltway, but I live in Maryland, and like, been here for 7 or 8 years. And like, there's so many people that I don't know. Or like when you play with people, like, oh, do you know that person? Or like, no idea. And like both of them are out gigging and doing stuff. The scene is bigger than you think.
Oh yeah.
For sure. Is. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, the only other thing that I could like associate with like the dissociation, I remember with my all original band, I remember when we were touring, and you go to like that moment for me was like going to traveling to a city you've never been to, playing a place you've never played, and like we're an opener on a tour, but like. You play, and there are people singing along with your songs. Yeah, there are people that you've never, in a place you've never been to, that you've never met, singing the words of your songs. That's like, that for me was like, I'm thankful that I got to experience that.
Yeah, that's a wild feeling.
It's crazy, but you've certainly done that. Where like, people show up to Oh He Dead songs, are shouting these songs back at you guys, and it's like it's wild.
A real thing. I remember the first time I heard people singing the song, the words to a song that wasn't ever put on the internet. It wasn't released. It was like people knew all the words from
coming to shows.
And it freaked me out. I was like, this is a weird phenomenon happening here. Like, it's just like, it's bizarre. And I'm grateful that I met those like people, and we're going to, we have 2 albums coming out. We have a bunch of runs next year.
You guys got some big stuff coming up for sure.
So we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm not taking it for granted, but let's
enjoy it while it's here. But I hear you, man. And you gotta like, it's one of those things. Music is one of those things where it's like, gigs, like we were talking about, like anything can happen. Whatever. Like, do your best, right? But at the same time, it is like, but like serious, like do your best. Like you guys, and I think you guys have done a good job at that. Like the music that you've made and the way that you guys have done promotion, and the way that you guys really are kind of you're taking your shot. So
it takes a lot of
respectable.
That's that's the only thing I'll say is before I joined them, I didn't realize the work that it put into like everybody has to be doing something. And that was why when you say like start a solo project, I've had that same thought in my head, and it's like,
but it's like then I have to do everything.
But you got to do it's a lot. You have to have people that believe in your music, because it's like how you're gonna pay people for every rehearsal. You have to have people that just want to do it because they want to do it, and it's good luck to anyone, because it's it's hard.
At the same time, if there's like an amazing talent out there, I will like invest in helping them, because I just love it.
Exactly.
So much,
I'm doing that with a bunch of people right now, just because it's like, okay, I have a little bit of time, but I want to spend my time because I would like if I can contribute in any way to helping you be successful. That's kind of what I've been telling people. It's like, if you blow up and you don't need to take me, that's fine. I just want to play a part in like helping you get to somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've been able to do that a few times for a few artists here, like doing a recording session or whatever, that like want a live band or whatever, and it's the same thing. It's just a pleasure to be a part of it and to just contribute and help out. And it's just, at the end of the day, there's nothing like playing with people.
Yeah.
It's just nothing like it. It's incredible. So
I agree.
That's awesome, man. Well, if we have a few minutes, I wanted to tell, so I'm a Strat guy, love Stratocasters, but you somewhat recently bought a Strat, right? So it's sitting right there. You can grab it, but like, tell me about like, why have you owned a Strat in the past? Like,
I have owned a Strat, and I think it was like, I still have it up there. It was a light ash Strat from Guitar Center for a few $100, and it's still kind of messed up. I never really liked it, but it was really weirdly heavy. I feel like it was made in like, it wasn't Japan. It was like maybe they're making guitars in Korea.
They have Korean.
Yeah. So
is it a
like,
Squire?
It's a regular like Fender.
Really?
Strat. Yeah, I don't even.
There
I
are
don't know
Korean
what
ones
years
out there,
it
though.
is. It's definitely a Korean, like, because it's definitely not Japan. It's definitely not Mexico. My go-to guitars probably will always be a Tele. Like I have the PRS, it does everything well, but it's something about like I just like it. But Strat, I couldn't get that tone on the record, and I've been looking for them for years. I played the PRS one. I played old ones, new ones, custom.
So you played the Silver
ones.
Sky, and
Yeah.
it didn't really do.
It didn't do it for me.
Me
but
either.
I think it was. I understand why people like it. It sounds phenomenal. It was a playing thing for me. It was just like the neck felt weird.
It does, yeah. I mean, it's John says that it sounds like his. Yeah, the neck profile is exactly like his. It's sort of a blend between one of his like 63 and 64 Strats or something like that.
But it's amazing.
That's great, but like it doesn't feel like any other Strat I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, that's why I think people need to make like their own. Like, don't believe the hype of like everyone's got to get a John Mayer thing or everyone's got to get this. It's
if
like,
you do and it's going to inspire you, like great. Like you're talking about saving up for your PRS. Like if you want to save up the money and go buy that guitar and you're gonna play it like crazy.
And I will say that like
awesome.
sometimes when you're a kid, you don't know what you want.
No, you know what you.
Now I know what I kind of want, and still sometimes I'm like, I think I want something, and then I don't vibe with it. But like, especially like if you want to do the John Mayer thing, or you want to do the Santana thing, or you want to do whatever, like, and that's gonna make you play guitar, especially at the beginning. It's like you're not gonna know that you like this guitar until you really start digging.
Oh yeah,
and then you'll probably just learn to like that guitar.
Yeah, like I have a friend that has a Fender Tom DeLonge Strat.
Yeah,
and
I have that friend who has the same one.
Really?
It's a. The greenish color.
Yep. Yeah, it's like surf green or something with the humbucker.
I played that guitar a lot growing up.
And it's like, but he's like, I loved Blink-182. He's like, now I never play punk rock, but that guitar I played it for years and it got me into playing guitar.
My best friend had that guitar growing up, and I like loved it.
It's so cool. Yeah, I'm with you.
That's how I felt about PRS. Like I said, I didn't know who played it. It was
so
just
funny.
like, so anyways, this one. I was looking everywhere for years.
I put on this other super cool camera.
I'd just been playing Strats, and like I found this one, and they had it at the basement at Chuck Levin's. Mm-hmm. They had just like these custom shop ones there, and at the time I was going in to play a PRS Strat. And I was going in to play the Ultra or whatever that new series was.
Mm-hmm. The American Professional series.
I was talking to that guy that works there, and he was like, you should try one of these. That was a big mistake. And I thought they were going to be like so expensive because they say on the wall like $4,000 or whatever.
Those guys will make you a deal.
I didn't. In retrospect, like if you're ever going to buy an expensive instrument, just DC folks, like go to Chuck Levin's. It doesn't do the Stratty tone as well as like 60 Strats, but it's a 70. I never really remember like years of stuff, but it's the big head one. Yeah. So it's like a 70s
but it's got the vintage style truss rod. Yeah, so it's not the big 70s one with the massive volt,
So it just like sounds good. It stays in tune. I just really liked the neck. Like it was one of those a little bit worn. Yep. Not super worn, like like a Stratocaster.
Or like a Nash.
Like that. Yeah. But it's like, it felt good. Honestly, I just looked at it and I was like, this is dope. And then I played it for like an hour. I drove away. I think I went to Guitar Center and Atomic that day. You look around, you're like, can I make this work? And you go back and you're like, I'll take it.
I gotta have that guitar.
Now I play it a lot. I don't. You can play it.
What the heck tuning is it in?
It's probably an E flat or something.
Nice.
I was like, that was awesome.
I don't care.
It does a really nice jazz tone. which I like. Does the, I kind of, I don't know. And then it does the country thing really well.
It does. That's why I was. That's exactly why I knew. As soon as I played this pick, I was like, I'm putting that on the bridge really quick.
Yeah, it does like that whole thing, and I don't know. It does like, and I like the fourth position. I guess they say it. That's what I kind of live on.
Hey, So that's a custom shop 70 strat.
Yep.
Is that what? Okay. I mean, dude, even just like looking at if you want more of a 60s thing, I bet if you lower, just looking at the pickups, if you lower, I would leave the bridge alone because it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But like pickup height is one of those things. It's by taste.
Yeah.
So like, I bet if you want just a little bit thinner, if you pull them down, if you put them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like by tightening the screws just a little bit on the bridge and middle, it will sort of you'll have a little less of like really like crazy mid character, and it'll kind of like, I mean, it thins out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my other strat
great,
to do that one. It was funny because at the end of the recording session I had recently, I was working with this producer that I love, and he was like, "Don't ever sell that guitar." Because I was thinking about it at the time. I was like, is this really the guitar I want forever?
You're like...
And he was like, it does its thing really well.
Yeah.
He was like, if you want to just the Strat 60 is like,
there's so many guitars.
And he was like, just go
like
buy like a freaking Squire and like make it work. And that is what I realized about like my thing is like, I'll spend the money on a guitar because like my primary thing is playing them out. If I was just in a studio, I would have a ton of really cheap guitars because you can make
do
them
one
work.
thing really well.
Yeah. And it's like, so that's why I think some people are like, why would you spend $2,500 on a guitar? Why would you spend this? And it's like, because they work. Like,
no, they do. They do. And there's just something that like, every gig, there's always, you can choose like, oh, I'm going to take my, I have a Cower Telly, Telly style guitar. That's amazing. Yeah. It's like, I'm taking the Cower tonight. I'm going to play it all night.
Yeah.
Like there's just something about having those guitars that get you pumped up. Like I can't wait to, especially like, the set list is going to be like, I can't wait to play that part on that. It's going to sound crazy.
And like I said, I'm primarily like, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 gigs, I'm bringing a Telly. But those other like kind of offshoots, it's like I've been bringing this one out a lot more. I've been like really back into the PRS kick. I've been like, so it is nice to have kind of an option because it's like if you're just like, there are those days where I wake up and like any job, you're just like, oh man, I gotta like stay out till like 2 a.m. I gotta drive, I gotta do all this stuff. Obviously, once you get there, it's a different scene. But it is like being like, I'm gonna bring out the Strat. I'm gonna put on this like pedal today, and I'm just gonna see what happens. And that is like I've never lost that excitement.
Dude. I love it. Well, I think that's it, man. I think we're good.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
But appreciate it, dude. And definitely let me know about anything that like when I can come see you play.
Yeah.
Like I'll it's funny because like in order to do this kind of thing, like you almost have to be on the internet. You have to kind of be around. Have a little front door on the internet so people kind of can find you and stuff. But I'm really not, I don't like being tied to my phone. So like sometimes it's like, oh crap, I wasn't like on Instagram last week, so I didn't see that he was playing somewhere. So I'll try to look out for your stuff and catch you.
Of course.
And make that happen. But
so it's fun, man.
All right, sweet. That's a wrap. That's it.